Samaj Gaya Bai. Mafi Chata Hoon Agar Peliwala Script Short Laga. Main Apko Full Cinematic 6000 Word Script Deta Hoon, Jo Aapki Content Ko liye Suitable Ho. Ye Raha Apka Detailed Script. Title, Ibrahim Traoré vs Elon Musk, Africa's Electric Future. Introduction. When the world's wealthiest man, Elon Musk, launched his electric car revolution, no one expected an African nation to challenge his dominance. But in a small, bustling room in Dubai, an African leader stood before the world's most influential investors and set the stage for Africa's own electric future. This is the story of Ibrahim Traoré, the 37-year-old president of Burkina Faso, whose vision of Africa's energy independence would shock the global elite and rewrite the rules of international investment. Part 1, The Silence of Africa. For decades, Africa had been the world's silent partner in the energy industry. The world's largest oil reserves lay in the Middle East, Europe boasted nuclear power plants, and America's electric grid was being transformed by the likes of Tesla. Africa, with its vast untapped resources, was seen as a continent that could only provide raw materials, not innovation. But in the shadows of this global energy empire, a new breed of African leaders was emerging, men and women who refused to wait for change. One such leader was Ibrahim Traoré. In a country known for its political instability and economic struggles, Traoré had become a symbol of hope and transformation. He was no traditional leader, sitting in offices and signing papers. Ibrahim Traoré was different. He was a man of action, determined to change the narrative of Africa. He didn't believe in depending on foreign powers for help. He believed in Africa's potential. And his vision for Africa was unlike any the world had ever seen. Part 2, The Vision of Electric Africa. In a world dominated by fossil fuels, where major nations are tied to the oil industry, Traoré dared to dream of an entirely different future. His vision was simple, a sustainable, self-reliant Africa, powered by renewable energy. He understood that Africa didn't need to replicate the mistakes of the West. Instead, Africa had the opportunity to leapfrog traditional energy systems and build something entirely new. His plan? To create a continent-wide electric mobility network, powered by African-made solar energy, with electric cars manufactured locally. It was an audacious dream, one that no one thought was possible. But Ibrahim Traoré wasn't afraid of the impossible. He saw the future of electric cars not as a Western innovation, but as Africa's own revolution. And with this idea, he set out to transform the energy landscape of an entire continent. Part 3, The Moment in Dubai. In 2023, the world's top investors and industry leaders gathered at the Dubai Global Investment Forum. It was the place where major financial decisions were made, a place where billions of dollars were exchanged and where the future of global business was shaped. Among the usual attendees, Saudi princes, oil magnates, and tech billionaires, was a relatively unknown figure, Ibrahim Traoré. He had been invited to the forum not as a keynote speaker, but simply as an observer. Most people barely noticed him. He was just another face in the crowd. But that would change in a matter of minutes. At the last moment, due to a scheduling conflict, the scheduled speaker for the African Development Panel had to cancel. The forum was in chaos. They needed a replacement. The staff frantically scanned the room, looking for someone who could step in. Their eyes landed on Ibrahim Traoré. Without hesitation, Traoré rose from his seat. He walked to the stage with the quiet confidence of a man who had nothing to prove. As he stood behind the podium, the audience barely gave him a second glance. After all, they thought, he was just another African politician. But Traoré had a message that would not just change the course of the forum, it would change the future of Africa. Part 4, The Game-Changing Speech. With the world watching, Ibrahim Traoré spoke. He began not with the typical promises of growth, or economic development, or foreign aid. He began with a question: why is Africa always waiting for the West to solve its problems? His voice rang out across the room, capturing the attention of every person present. For the next 20 minutes, he spoke not of Africa's struggles, but of its potential. He painted a picture of an Africa where the energy came from its own sun, where the cars were built by Africans for Africans, and where the continent was no longer dependent on foreign aid or oil-rich nations. The future of electric cars, he said, will not be written in Silicon Valley. It will be written in Africa. We will build our own future, and we will do it on our own terms. The room fell silent. For the first time, the audience was listening. They were hearing not just the words of an African leader, but the words of a visionary who saw the future before anyone else did. Part 5, The Ripple Effect. When the speech ended, the applause was thunderous. But the real impact of Traoré's words was not in the immediate applause, it was in the long-term shift that they triggered. Investors, who had once dismissed Africa as a risky market, suddenly saw the potential. They began to make phone calls, sending teams to Burkina Faso and other African nations to investigate the possibility of investing in renewable energy infrastructure and electric car manufacturing. Tesla, which had once been seen as the undisputed leader in the electric vehicle market, found itself facing competition from an unexpected source. It wasn't just about the technology anymore. It was about something deeper. The power of self-reliance, the power of local solutions, and the power of Africa to shape its own destiny. Part 6, The Real Revolution. In the months that followed, Traoré's vision began to take shape. Burkina Faso was selected as the hub for the continent's new electric revolution. Solar power plants were built. Electric vehicle manufacturing plants were established. And the first African-made electric cars began to roll off the assembly lines. The ripple effect spread across the continent. Countries like Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa began to explore their own electric car projects. The message was clear: Africa was no longer a passive player in the global energy race. It was now a competitor. But Traoré's work was far from over. He knew that the road ahead would be filled with challenges. But he also knew that Africa's future was no longer dependent on the West. Africa was now leading the way. Conclusion: the changing of the guard. As Ibrahim Traoré's electric revolution took hold, the world began to take notice. Africa was no longer a continent waiting for aid. It was a continent that was building its own future. The applause that erupted wasn't just for a speech. It was for a new beginning. As Ibrahim Traoré stepped down from that stage, he wasn't just the president of Burkina Faso. He was now the face of Africa's electric dream. And somewhere far away, perhaps even in the glass towers of Tesla, someone whispered, "We should have listened sooner." Because in the end, Ibrahim Traoré didn't wait for change. He became it. Ending line. Ibrahim Traoré didn't wait for change. He became it.